most people, when it comes to atheism, I think there are psychological factors behind their atheism, especially when they come from Muslim families. When people come from an atheistic family, a lot of them, like I said, in Sweden, a lot of them, they just grow up in a society and in a family where religion is not important, so they don't really care about these subjects. But if someone is living in a Muslim family or living in a Christian family or a religious family, and then decides to become an atheist or leave religion, usually there are different psychological factors behind that. And Paul Witz is a professor in psychology in USA, and he brought about a theory, what is called the faith of the fatherless, where he said that he studied the biographies of the most famous atheists throughout history, and he saw that most of them had problems with their fathers. So he tried to make some kind of link between the problems with their father, either that the father died, or they were neglected and they didn't care about them when they were young, or they were hitting them, doing bad things to them, and so on. So this became some kind of reaction against what their fathers did to them, and so on. The theory that he has to try to find psychological factors behind atheism, it's good. And I think that in many cases it goes back to a bad upbringing, especially if they come from religious homes. You can see some atheists that came from really religious homes, and then they became atheists. I think it can be true in sometimes, but the problem with Paul Witz, he's a Christian, so he tried to explain the belief in God with the lack of belief in God in a problem with problems with the Father, because they, as Christians, they speak about God as a heavenly Father. So they say, oh God, he's my Father, and so on. So they try to make the link between that and belief in God. So him trying to find psychological factors behind this belief, behind atheism, I think is a very important kind of study that you could do. But his explanation, I think, is quite linked to Christianity. So we should be careful when it comes to psychologists when they try to explain things throughout their theories. And I think there can be some Freudian, you have Sigmund Freud, who's like the father of psychoanalysis. He used to speak about also like when your father is dead and what it happens, or your mother, and the relation between the son and they have their whole philosophy when it comes to these things. So I think a Muslim should be careful when it comes to some of the theories, when it comes to this subject. But I think he's right when it comes to that most problems really go back to psychological factors, especially when people are young, and that they have some kind of problem. They have a problem with the imam of the mosque, or they have a problem with their fathers or their mothers being too harsh on them when it comes to religious stuff and so on. So it becomes some kind of psychological reaction against religion because of things in their past. I think that's true, and then they try to say that I became an atheist just because it's more rational, it's more logical, it's like this and that. But in the end, if you really try to look what the real reason is, you will find other things. And this is quite interesting, what is called psychobiographies, that you can study biographies of people on a psychological level. So you can study the biography of different famous people from a psychological level. So you can see how their convictions came about. If they become a religious person or non-religious person or political activist or anything, usually you can find things that happened in his life and it developed to the kind of convictions that he had.